In the early 1300s, deep within the stone corridors of a forgotten monastery, lived a man called Master Duran, a surgeon whose obsession with purification turned to madness.
He believed disease was born from the cold within the soul, and that only boiling heat could cleanse it.
To prove his theory, he built a vast iron cauldron in his workshop, filled it with wine, herbs, and scalding oil, then invited the sick and desperate to bathe for healing. One by one,
They entered, and one by one, their screams tore through the monastery.
Duran took notes as skin sloughed off bone, timing how long the body endured before silence. He called it the cleansing of sin through heat. When villagers broke in, they found the room filled with steam, the air thick with the smell of cooked flesh. Duran sat calmly beside the cauldron, his hands blistered, but his smile serene. "They are pure now," he whispered. By dawn, both Duran and his cauldron had vanished.
Only scorch marks on the floor remained, shaped like human hands, pressed into stone as if in final agony.
Some nights, locals still hear boiling water in the ruins, though no one dares to look for its source.
In 1329, the physician Ronaldus of Prague sought to unlock the balance of life through blood.
He believed health could be transferred, that the vigor of the young could restore the dying, and the pain of the sick could cleanse the healthy. He named his experiment Sanguisan Use One Blood. In his candlelit laboratory, peasants and prisoners were strapped to tables. He drained blood from one, funneled it into another, and recorded every heartbeat. At first, the transfused subjects convulsed, their eyes rolling white. Then came whispers, voices only they could hear, murmuring from within their veins. Ronaldus wrote that one subject screamed, "It's crawling inside me!" before his skin darkened, pulsing like something alive beneath it.
Terrified, the doctor cut him open, only to find veins twisting like serpents, alive and hissing.
Soon after, his assistants vanished.
The townsfolk later found Ronaldus's lab empty except for his journals, sealed in red wax, and titled "The Blood Spoke."
None dared open them, but witnesses said the wax occasionally pulsed, as though blood still flowed beneath it.
During the reign of King Ferdinand,
A secret guild of alchemists promised to create men of gold, human vessels infused with wealth and immortality. The king, greedy and desperate, gave them prisoners to test upon. In the royal dungeon, the experiments began. The alchemists melted gold and mercury together, forcing the molten mixture into open wounds while chanting incantations of transmutation. Flesh bubbled, veins turned silver, and screams echoed like a choir from hell. One subject survived the night. His skin shimmered faintly under torchlight, gold veins glowing through his body. They called him Aurum Homo, the Golden Man. For a moment, they thought they had succeeded, but the glow spread uncontrollably, turning his flesh rigid, his joints stiff, his eyes metallic. By morning, he was a statue, still breathing faintly inside a golden shell. When they tried to move him, his limbs shattered like glass. The king ordered the project destroyed, but legends claim his statue was hidden beneath the castle.
Some nights, during full moons, the metal shell glows again, and from inside, a muffled gasp can be heard.
As if the man is still alive, begging for release. Queen Eleanor of Aragon feared death more than sin. Her private physician, Dr. Vale, swore he could preserve her youth, using the essence of life itself. He began with her servants, mixing their blood with extracts of nightshade, bat wings, and powdered bone. The trials twisted flesh and bone beyond recognition. Those who survived begged for death, their veins dark with poison, their eyes bleeding black tears. Still, the queen commanded Vale to continue. "For beauty," she said, "is worth any pain?" At last, he created the final serum and administered it to her. The queen collapsed instantly. Her skin turned smooth, pale as marble, her heart silent. Vale believed he failed, until she opened her eyes again. They were glassy, unblinking, yet alive. When the court found her body, they entombed it in glass, her beauty untouched by time. Vale disappeared, leaving only one note behind. She sleeps, not dies. Centuries later. Her tomb was opened during restoration, and the workers swore her pupils moved toward the light. High in the mountains of northern France stood the monastery of Saint Lyrin, famed for its healing miracles. Pilgrims believed the monks there cured but inside its stone walls, prayers were whispered over screams. The monks practiced dissection, not of corpses, but of the living. They believed pain revealed divine truth. Criminals, beggars, and orphans vanished into the monastery, never to return.
Records later found describe studies of the soul's vessel, detailing how the monks open-chested,
Watch hearts beat and lungs gasp. They sang hymns to time the rhythm of dying breaths. When the Pope's guards finally raided the monastery, they found the chapel filled with bodies, arranged like saints, each dissected, labeled in Latin, anima, fides, corpus. The monks were gone, the candles still burning. Only one message remained, scrawled on the altar in dried blood. Through pain,
We saw God's design. To this day, no one dares ring the monastery's bell.
they say when it tolls. Faint chanting answers back in the voices of those who never left. In the early 1400s, in the misty town of Avignon, lived Dr. Matthias Laurent, a scholar of forbidden arts, obsessed with conquering death. He believed that lightning and alchemy could resurrect the dead. He gathered bodies from plague pits, men, women, and children, stitching them together in grotesque forms. Night after night, villagers saw flashes of light from his tower. The doctor would raise metal rods to the storm clouds, channeling electricity through the corpses, praying for a spark of life.
One night, he succeeded.
The creature gasped, a broken, shuddering breath. Laurent cried, "It lives!" But the thing opened its eyes, black and endless, and spoke his name in a dozen voices at once. Terrified, he tried to destroy it, but it moved faster than thought, crushing him in its cold embrace. When the townsfolk entered the tower days later, they found only scraps of flesh, burned tools, and a single hand. Lawrence's fused into the iron table as if melted there. To this day, travelers claim to see a tall, patchwork figure wandering the forests near Avignon,
Whispering for its creator to finish what he began.
In 1362, the Guild of Healers in Milan was secretly conducting divine tests to perfect human anatomy. They believed pain revealed purity, that by altering the body,
one could glimpse the shape of God. The guild gathered volunteers, promising miracles.
instead, they amputated limbs to study healing from faith. Others were cut open while alive so monks could watch the soul depart. Each victim's dying breath was recorded in Latin hymns. A young scribe named Dante uncovered their rituals.
When he threatened to expose them, they captured him and turned him into their final subject.
His blood was drained and replaced with a glowing alchemical serum designed to make the dead speak.
4 days,
Dante's body convulsed on the table.
Then he sat up, his eyes white as marble. He whispered to the guildmaster, "You cannot alter what was made divine." Moments later, the candles exploded into flame. The entire guild burned alive, their screams echoing across the city. In the ashes, investigators found a single note written in Dante's hand. They tried to see God. Now they are part of him. In the shadowed halls of St. Marine's infirmary, healers claimed to cure pain by drawing it out. Literally, they believed agony could be extracted like blood. Patients were strapped to iron chairs. Their wounds reopened as physicians placed leeches, mixed with crushed glass, upon the skin. The leeches tore into flesh, and the victims screamed as black fluid oozed out. The doctors called it the spirit of pain leaving the body. But soon the leeches began to mutate, growing larger, harder, filled with veins that pulsed red. The head healer, Brother Roland, decided to study them. One night, the jars shattered, and the creatures vanished into the infirmary's vents. By morning, every healer was gone. The walls dripped with blood, and the floors were covered in hundreds of small, red trails leading toward the cathedral. When the church sealed the building, they heard something moving beneath the stone, wet, slithering, and alive. Some say on stormy nights, the sound of thousands of tiny mouths sucking can still be heard below. The ruined infirmary, Brother Garin of Reims, was known as the Holy Pure. He claimed sin lived not in the heart, but in the blood and poison could purge it. He created his own concoction from serpent venom, crushed bone, and consecrated wine. At first, he tested it on condemned prisoners, calling it the salvation serum. The victims writhed, their veins blackening as they screamed confessions they'd never spoken before. To Garen, this was proof. The poison forced truth from flesh. Soon, he began testing on the faithful, promising spiritual cleansing. Within minutes, his subjects either died or fell into trance-like states, muttering prayers in unknown tongues. One night, Garen tested the poison on himself. Monks found him days later, his body perfectly preserved, eyes open, mouth smiling. His heart was still beating faintly, even though he had been dead for 3 days. The church buried him under sealed stone, but centuries later, when workers renovated the abbey, they claimed to hear faint whispers beneath the floor, repeating the same words again and again. "I am clean." In 1471, the alchemist Henricus Valdar sought to create a potion that could soften flesh and shape it anew. His dream was immortality to mold his aging body into youth again. He mixed mercury, sulfur, and dragon's bile in a golden crucible, heating it for 7 days and 7 nights.
When the potion was ready, it glowed like molten sunlight.
Henricus drank without hesitation. At first, he felt divine strength, skin tightening, pain vanishing. Then came the horror. His flesh began to drip like wax, pooling at his feet. He screamed as his hands melted into the stone, bones dissolving, organs sliding from his body in rivers of gold. Yet somehow, he remained alive, aware, unable to die.
When his apprentice found him, the floor was covered in golden ooze.
In its center, a single eye blinked. The apprentice fled, sealing the chamber forever. Centuries later, when explorers broke open Valdar's lab, they found no bones, only the faint shimmer of gold across the walls, pulsing as if breathing. During the height of the Black Death, when Europe drowned in despair, Dr. Hugo Renard saw opportunity. While others fled the infected cities, he collected the dying. To him, they were volunteers of fate. In the catacombs beneath Marseille, Renaud conducted secret experiments, injecting rat bile and powdered corpse ash into patients, believing he could train the body to love disease. He stitched buboes shut, opened lungs to feed them air, and recorded every sound of agony. He became convinced the plague was a living spirit, one that could be captured. In his final journal, he wrote, "It breathes when I do." When the church discovered his hideout, they found the chamber littered with hundreds of rotting corpses and a strange cocoon-like shape growing from the ceiling.
Made of flesh and cloth.
Inside it was Renard's body, or what was left of it, fused to the walls. Eyes open, mouth stretched wide, as if in mid. Even today, plague doctors avoid that part of the catacombs. They say the air tastes sweet there, and sometimes, if you breathe deeply, it breathes back. In 1437, Archimista, Bardata Saramon, favored by the French court, promised to unlock the secret to immortality. He claimed he could make the king's soldiers invincible.
Behind closed doors, he began the experiment of Vita trials using human subjects.
He mixed elixirs of silver dust, serpent oil, and blood from newborns. Each soldier who drank it changed at first, stronger, faster, but soon their skin turned gray and their hearts grew cold. They obeyed no orders, moving only toward warmth and life. Balthazar tried to destroy them, but his creations attacked. The royal guards sealed the laboratory with iron, trapping everyone inside. Years later, explorers reopened the chamber. The walls were clawed from the inside, and silver stains covered the floors. In the center lay a throne of fused metal and bone, and upon it, a figure sat motionless, skin silvered, eyes open but lifeless. His crown was still intact. His lips whispered even without breath, "I am eternal." The chamber was resealed forever, yet locals claim on cold nights, a faint silver glow leaks through the cracks, and metallic whispers echo through the corridors. Its lord, Baron Gregor von Thal, believed madness was the key to understanding the divine mind. He hired physicians, surgeons, and alchemists to study the cursed. Patients were chained in stone cells. Their dreams were recorded in books. Their skulls opened to let light in. Some were submerged in water for days. Others force-fed mercury until their veins glowed faintly in the dark. Von Thal kept every record, calling his project the Anatomy of the Soul. When villagers finally revolted and stormed the castle, they found the Baron's laboratory empty. Dozens of operating tables lined the hall, each holding a single patient alive, but silent. Their eyes were sewn shut, yet tears still flowed. At the far end of the chamber, a single heartbeat echoed from behind a steel door. When it was opened, only a shadow fled, crawling across the ceiling and vanishing into the forest. The castle still stands. Travelers say if you listen at the gates at midnight, you can hear hundreds of heartbeats, still waiting for their turn. In the 15th century, the philosopher-physician Dr. Osric van Halle theorized that the soul was a substance, a fluid within the body that could be transferred. He called it essentia vita. Osric captured dying patients and performed his greatest experiment, the exchange of life essence between two bodies. Using silver tubes and sacred bloodstones, he drained one man's spirit fluid into another, reciting verses to trap the soul inside. The results were catastrophic. The first subject woke screaming, clawing at his own skin, shouting, "It's not me! It's not me!" Before his body tore itself apart, others awoke speaking in strange languages, with memories that were not their own. Osric grew convinced he had succeeded, that he had stolen fragments of heaven. His final experiment was on himself. He injected the essence of a dying criminal into his veins. The next morning, his assistants found him kneeling, eyes black, whispering the criminal's name over and over. His journal ended with one final line: "The body forgets, the soul remembers." After that, Van Halle disappeared. His home burned down weeks later, yet witnesses swore they saw two shadows escape through the flames. In the royal court of Bohemia, Dr. Lucien Dran was hailed as the eternal healer. He claimed death could be postponed by replacing the blood of the old with that of the young. His laboratory was hidden beneath the palace, a room of marble floors, drains, and silver pipes. There, he performed transfusions on nobles desperate for more life.
The young were taken from the streets, drained completely while the aristocrats feasted above. Lucien recorded that each transfusion gave his clients clarity and vigor.
But it was short-lived.
Within weeks, their skin blackened and their veins burst from within.
Convinced the problem was impurity, Lucien used his own blood, believing himself chosen. The moment he injected it, his body convulsed violently. His veins turned transparent, glowing faintly blue as the blood evaporated before the witness's eyes. When guards entered later, the room was empty. Only one message was etched into the wall, written in dried blood: "The secret is in the drain." Even today, when it rains heavily, the old palace sewers rumble, as if something below is still trying to rise again. Beneath the cobblestone streets of Florence, the wealthy elite once whispered of a healer who could cure madness. His name was Dr. Valerio Conti, and his clinic was said to be blessed by angels. But beneath the marble halls lay a labyrinth of cells, a place known only as the Red Dungeons. There, Valerio conducted his cures. He believed insanity was caused by spirits trapped in the body, and pain could drive them out. Victims were strapped to iron chairs as their nerves were sliced open, inch by inch. Their screams were recorded, analyzed, and compared to the rhythm of psalms. He wrote, "When the body forgets its pain, the soul is reborn." But one night, the screams didn't stop. Guards burst in to find the doctor surrounded by mutilated patients, their mouths sewn shut, yet the air vibrated with whispers. Valerio stood smiling,
His own eyes gouged out.
"They're quiet now," he said. "I can hear them clearly." When the torches were relit, he was gone. Only a trail of blood led to the catacombs. To this day, Locals claim to hear faint whispers under Florence prayers spoken by tongues no longer human. In 1421, the royal physician Dr. Esteban de Leorna promised Queen Isabella a cure for all disease, a bath that could boil sickness away. His miracle chamber, made of brass and sealed tight, was filled with steam from burning herbs and holy oils. The first patients were nobles, eager to be healed. Esteban raised the heat slowly, chanting as they sweated and screamed.
When they begged to be released, he called it the cry of toxins leaving the flesh. By dawn, silence filled the chamber.
When the door was opened, the bodies had melted into a thick, waxy fluid. Esteban calmly recorded every detail, color, scent, texture, calling it the purest form of humanity. When the court discovered his crimes, they tried to arrest him, but the physician had vanished. Only a note remained.
Perfection requires pain. A century later, the bath chamber was found again, untouched, yet warm.
The walls dripped with a yellow film that seemed to breathe. And if you stayed long enough, you could hear a faint hiss, like water boiling, or someone exhaling from beneath the metal floor. In the village of Ravenlock, healers and sorcerers worked side by side. They claimed to blend science and sorcery, medicine and magic, to cure those whom God had abandoned. Their leader, Sister Mara, believed that dark forces could be bent to heal the faithful. She drew symbols on the skin of the dying, carved runes into their bones, and poured blessed mercury into their veins. The sick screamed as their bodies convulsed, their eyes rolling white. For a time, it seemed to work. The blind saw, the lame walked, but only under the moonlight. When dawn came, their flesh cracked and bled black. Some burst into flame without reason. The villagers revolted, burning the convent to the ground. But when the smoke cleared, Sister Mora's body was not among the dead. Instead, carved into the floor where she once stood, were the words, "I traded their pain for mine. On nights when the moon is full, her voice is still heard in the ruins, whispering the old chants." Some say she heals those who wander too close. Others say she simply takes what she needs. In the court of King Aldrich III, prisoners vanished without trial. Whispers told of Dr. Alaric Voss, the king's private physician, who promised to study pain for the glory of the crown. Hidden beneath the castle was a vast stone laboratory. There, Alaric drained prisoners' blood, replaced it with strange alchemical mixtures, and tested poisons that could kill and revive the body. He believed pain itself could extend life. Each experiment was meticulously recorded, how long it took for a man to scream, when his eyes dimmed, when his soul seemed to slip away. When the king fell ill, Alaric attempted his ultimate experiment, using prisoner blood to restore royal life. The result was monstrous. The king awoke gasping, his veins glowing blue, his skin translucent. He screamed endlessly, unable to die. The castle was sealed. Years later, explorers found the lab empty, except for a throne covered in dried blood and a crown fused to bone. They say King Aldrich still sits beneath the castle, screaming softly in the dark, and his physician listens nearby, still taking notes. In 1395, a brotherhood of alchemists in Venice claimed mercury could cleanse the soul before death. They called it the silver baptism. The dying were lined in rows, given cups of liquid metal, and told to drink for salvation. At first, the victims shivered, whispering that their tongues tasted like light. Then their bodies stiffened, skin turning pale and reflective. Their hearts slowed, but they did not die. The alchemists believed they had preserved them between life and death, vessels of purity. They displayed the bodies as proof of success. When city officials raided the Brotherhood's temple, they found statues made of silvered flesh, each one with open eyes and parted lips. As if still trying to breathe, the floor was coated with mercury, pulsing like liquid life. No one touched the remains. The temple was sealed, the mercury drained into the canals. But at low tide, locals swear the water glows faintly silver. And if you look long enough,
You'll see faces moving beneath the surface, mouths opening and closing as if still begging for air.
In the late 1300s, the Holy Order of St. Varel claimed to perform divine examinations, rituals said to separate the holy from the damned. In truth, they were experiments on the living, disguised as purification rites. Monks captured beggars and accused heretics, tying them to altars beneath cathedrals. There, they injected them with blessed water mixed with mercury, believing the body of a sinner would reject the holy. When the victim screamed, convulsed, or bled, the monks recorded it as proof of corruption. Abbot Remiel, the order's leader, went further. He began dissecting the dead during Mass, declaring their entrails spiritual maps. The Pope himself sent inquisitors to stop him, but when they entered the monastery, every monk was dead, kneeling in prayer, eyes gouged out, and mouths sewn shut.
The walls were carved with words in blood. God has answered.
Centuries later, when restoration began,
Workers claimed the floorboards bled when cut, and faint voices whispered prayers in Latin. Prayers no living monk could remember. During the Great Plague, a mysterious figure known only as Dr. Corvinus arrived in London. His black beak mask and raven feather cloak became a symbol of both hope and terror. He promised a cure, but those who entered his house never returned. When the epidemic waned, neighbors finally broke in. Beneath the doctor's home was a hidden laboratory filled with cages, corpses, and glass jars of blackened organs floating in oil. He had been experimenting with plague victims, trying to breed immunity. Some bodies were half human, half animal, the results of his unspeakable grafting rituals. On his desk lay his final notes. The plague is not death, it is life seeking a new form. No trace of the doctor's body was found. But years later, gravediggers claimed to see a tall figure wandering cemeteries during storms, its mask dripping with tar, its bag filled with bones that still moved.
They called him the Raven Doctor, and when his shadow passes by, the air smells faintly of rot, as if the plague still breathes.
In 1464, Lady Isolde of Barden, a noblewoman known for her beauty, fell gravely ill. Her husband, desperate to save her, summoned the alchemist Dr. Hugo Verdun promised he could preserve her life, but his cure would not be natural. He injected her with a blend of gold dust, bat's blood, and embalming oil, believing it would halt decay. At first, Isolde revived, her cheeks flushed, her breath returned. But soon, her body stiffened, her heartbeat slowed until it became nearly silent. Her eyes remained open, glowing faintly like amber.
Verdun declared her perfect, neither alive nor dead. The Lord was horrified and locked her in the tower.
Yet at night, servants heard movement. Her hands scratched the walls, her lips whispered words that no one understood. When the tower was opened, decades later, Isolde still stood there, her body unchanged. The only difference, her mouth was frozen in a smile. To this day, her statue-like figure remains sealed behind glass in a forgotten chapel. Some say if you speak her name softly, her eyes flicker as if she's waiting to be finished. In 1348, before the concept of anesthesia existed, surgeons relied on faith, prayer, and rope. The most infamous among them was Master Conrad Blicker, a battlefield healer who turned surgery into spectacle. He claimed pain revealed the body's hidden will to survive. During amputations, he forbade assistance from restraining patients. Instead, he demanded they embrace the agony. He took notes as men screamed, calling it music of the flesh. When his curiosity grew, he began cutting not to heal, but to observe. He sliced open living soldiers to watch hearts pump, to see how courage beats. His students said he hummed while working a hymn that drowned out the dying. Eventually, soldiers stopped coming. When the army invaded his tent, they found dozens of torsos hanging from hooks, each labeled with names and dates.
On the operating table sat Conrad, smiling, carving open his own arm, still humming softly.
The soldiers burned everything. But reports say his song still echoes on old battlefields at dusk, a single haunting melody rising with the wind. In the city of Rothenburg, Dr. Matthias Krull was known as both physician and exorcist. He believed demons caused disease and that they could also cure it. Krull captured the dying and performed rituals over their beds, calling upon infernal spirits to eat the sickness. He burned sigils into the skin of his patients and forced them to swallow powders made from human ashes. For a moment, the patients would heal, their eyes bright, their bodies renewed. But soon, whispers filled the air.
The healed began speaking in voices not their own, moving as if puppeted by unseen hands.
Krull recorded everything, proud of his success. One night, the screams stopped abruptly. When the guards entered, the patients were gone. Every bed empty. On the ceiling, written in soot, was a single sentence: "We thank him for the door." Krull's body was never found. Only his mask remained, nailed to the wall upside down. Locals still claim to see it appear during eclipses hanging in midair, watching. And if you listen closely, you'll hear a chorus of voices whispering from the dark. "The doctor is in!" In the 14th century, Adarik Gudi-son, a wandering alchemist, claimed to have discovered the elixir of endless breath. He believed that by replacing a man's blood with mercury, he could stop time within the body. In a hidden castle laboratory, prisoners were bound to wooden tables, while molten mercury was poured into their veins through silver funnels. Their veins shimmered, their eyes rolled back, and for a brief moment, their hearts beat with metallic rhythm. But the elixir did not grant immortality. Their flesh turned pale, their mouths foamed silver, and their hearts hardened into lumps of metal. Still, Alaric took notes calmly, muttering, almost perfect. When the church finally stormed his lab, they found him encased in solid mercury, perfectly preserved, eyes open, mouth moving soundlessly. The mercury never cooled, and even now, the statue emits faint warmth. Locals call it the living metal man. Some claim on stormy nights, the statue's eyes flicker, and if you listen closely, you can hear the faint pulse of a heart still trying to beat. In 3090, the small village of Risenfeld was haunted by a healer named Otto Grimm, once a later, a self-proclaimed surgeon. He believed disease could be cut out of the flesh like spoiled meat. His workshop smelled of blood and rot. Patients came seeking cures for pain, and Otto delivered with knives, saws, and hammers. He'd open their chests to free the illness, then stitch them up with twine used for hanging carcasses. Many died screaming, but Otto kept the bodies, carving them open to study their defects. When villagers finally revolted, they stormed his house and found walls covered in skinned faces, each one stretched flat like parchment, marked with his handwriting. Otto was gone, but his journal remained. The body is only meat, the soul hides beneath. Years later, travelers claim to see a limping man in blood-stained robes wandering the forests, carrying a surgeon's bag that dripped fresh crimson, centuries after Otto's death. At the Abbey of St. Marcellus, a secret brotherhood of monks pursued the unholy. They believed the human soul could be transplanted like an organ. They kidnapped dying peasants and freshly dead nobles, attempting to transfer the breath of life through rituals involving heated irons and glass tubes filled with holy water and blood. The abbey stank of death, yet the monks persisted. One night, they succeeded. A corpse opened its eyes. The monks rejoiced until it spoke in 12 voices at once. "You have broken the seal." By morning, every monk was dead, their bodies desiccated, their faces frozen in eternal screams. The abbey was abandoned, but travelers still see candlelight flickering in the windows and chanting from beneath the chapel.
Locals say the monks' souls remain trapped, cycling endlessly between bodies, seeking one that fits.
King Adalric the Cruel could not accept death, not even his own. When his son died of fever, he ordered his court surgeon, Gareth Malden, to bring the boy back. Malden combined forbidden alchemy with primitive surgery, stitching together fragments of other corpses to replace the prince's rotted flesh. He filled the boy's veins with embalming oil, his lungs with bellows, his eyes with glass. And on the 13th night, lightning struck the tower. The prince rose shrieking, limbs twisting, his voice not his own. Adalric wept in joy.
until the creature turned on him, whispering,
Father, by dawn, both were dead, their bodies fused together by molten flesh. The kingdom buried the tower in stone, declaring it cursed.
Still, during thunderstorms, villagers swear they hear a child's voice crying, echoing from beneath the earth. Father, it's still dark! In 1487, the town of Verloc vanished from all records. Once a thriving medical hub, it was home to scholars who believed pain could lead to divine enlightenment. They created a hospital unlike any other, filled with devices of torment designed to study in. Patients were cut, burned, and revived endlessly.
Witnesses described laughter echoing from the wards. Not from the doctors, but from the dying.
When a traveler stumbled upon Verloc years later, the town was silent.
The hospital stood intact, doors open, beds made, candles still burning. But no one was alive. The air itself pulsed faintly, as if breathing. Inside the main hall, carved into the wall, were the final words of the head physician. We have cured death, but it refuses to leave. No one has returned since.
Maps of Europe still show an empty patch where Verloc once stood, as if the earth itself erased the horror that was born there.